you're never really free, even if you're told you're free as an Indigenous person, I think.
This is A Deeper Listen from KEXP. I'm Emily Fox. Today we're talking with the Montreal-based and Anishinaabe-led band Ribbon Skirt. They released their debut album Bite Down this spring. Most of the album stays within the indie rock and post-punk realm with tracks like Off Res and Wrong Planet. The album features some moments of shoegaze, the song 41 introduces some auto-tune-like vocals, and Look What You Did reminds me of the vocal cadence of Wet Leg.
I still believe in the way you shape your O's, how you drool and you sleep, how you hate the snow.
Then in October, Ribbon Skirt released an EP called PENSACOLA. Here's the title track. The EP is even more varied in sound than their debut full-length. You hear some pop influence and some grungy garage rock. Ribbon Skirt is led by Tashiina Buswa. The band used to go by the name Love Language, but Buswa was starting to notice a tonal shift within the music.
And I was also starting to write a lot more about my Indigenous identity and like coming to terms with that and rediscovering that part of myself as an adult. So a lot of that was creeping into my songwriting as well.
Then came the name change to Ribbon Skirt, something worn by Indigenous women.
And when we were deciding on this name, Ribbon Skirt, I had a moment of pause because I was like, if we choose this name, there is going to be a certain level of responsibility and weight that is going to be sort of on my shoulders for the rest of the time that we're in the band and I talked to my mom about it too, and she was like, you're going to have to carry that. And are you ready to carry that forward?
I caught up with Buswa after a recent in-studio session at KEXP to talk more about her life and how indigeneity comes up in her music. I first asked about Ribbon Skirt's song, Off Res.
Off res, they want my name with a gun. Off res, they take my money and run. Off res.
Tell me more about just the inspiration behind that song and the message that you're sending in it.
Basically, when I started writing that song, I was going through the process of renewing my status card, which is, I don't know what the equivalent is in the States, but it's basically a piece of paper that tells the government that you're Native or not, or Native enough to like qualify for certain things. And the process is very lengthy and annoying, and it's very bureaucratic, and it's just weird because it's like, you know, you're playing this weird game of having to prove your own indigeneity to this, you know, colonial system that, so I was going through this process and feeling very frustrated and just started to think more broadly about all the other, you know, hoops that us Native people have been made to jump through for many, many years by the colonial project at large. And there's just so many of them, you know, and it can spread so wide into so many categories, such as, you know, like healthcare, education, even just reservations or not living on a reservation. I never lived on the res. And so for me, the off-res part in the chorus is sort of like my little anthem of you know, my life, because it kind of feels to me that you can't win either way if you're living on res or off res as an Indigenous person, because no matter what, they're going to make you jump through some kind of hoop opposite of what your peer is jumping through, right? And so it's just a very flawed system, and it's very frustrating. And I think I was just trying to unleash some of that frustration in that song.
So some of these lyrics, you know, you're saying like, solve the Indian problem once and for all.
Drown you in paperwork, skip down the hall. Solve the Indian problem once and for all.
And then you're going into like this idea of of like freedom and feeling free, but are you really free?
I wanna preserve every part that makes me not only know but really feel that I'm free. Not only know but really feel that I'm free.
Can you kind of break that down?
Yeah, I think that with that line, not only know but really feel that I'm free, I think there's like a sense that, like for Indigenous people, that we're told, okay, if you check all these boxes and do all these things right and, you know, have all your identification and your documents in order, then you are like an equal to the rest of society and you are documented and you're able to roam freely as the rest of us do. But even if you do have all those things, it just feels like, I don't know, it's hard to explain it, but it's like, you're never really free, even if you're told you're free as an Indigenous person, I think. And this could apply to, you know, a lot of different groups, but like, I think that the desire to actually feel that freedom flowing is very palpable. And, you know, it's why we are always saying land back. And, you know, there's been so much that has been stripped away and so much that won't ever be given back. But all we can do is just keep demanding and keep fighting for that freedom or that to have our rights to exist in this land is like, that's the only thing that we can keep fighting for. So yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get to, I think.
Not only know but really feel that I'm free. Oppressed, they want my name with a gun. Oppressed, they take my money and run. Oppressed, and they want my decision and cut. Oppressed, they want this Indian done. Oppressed.
Yeah, I mean, the two lines is solve the Indian problem once and for all, and then the song kind of ends with the line, they want this Indian done. Anything you want to say about those lines?
That line, the Indian problem, solve the Indian problem, that came from like a very old, like in the days of residential schools, where the government was, you know, writing horrible letters and saying like, oh, we need to solve the Indian problem,
Or
AKA.
in the U.S., it was kill the Indian, save the man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just these, you know, which is just very horrible phrases that I think that if you can take those, I think that it was just my way of like taking this phrase that is like meant to like decimate me and like turn it into something like, I own this now, or like I'm reclaiming this back from you, and this doesn't have power anymore because I'm taking it back.
Drown you in paperwork, skip down the hall. Solve the Indian problem once and for all. They want 2000s Buffy Marie. They want my status, but they're getting my teeth. I wanna preserve every part that makes me not only know but really feel that I'm free. Not only know but really feel that I'm free.
So you are from Sioux Lookout in
Yeah.
Ontario, which if you look on a map is like, I don't know how many miles or how many hours north of the Minnesota border that would be. How long would you say that drive would be?
Oh, I would say
6 hours?
like 12
hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it kind of, but like you're like really in the middle of this landmass, which seemingly, if you look at a map, seems like the middle of nowhere, but you're surrounded by lakes and stuff. But to me, I mean, that's like very rural living. I'm curious, like you saying you grew up off res, yet you were in a very small, seemingly community. Like, how would you describe your upbringing, you know, compared to what you would imagine if you were raised on res would be like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say technically my upbringing was not all that different from family members or friends that did grow up on the res. Like one of my best friends grew up on the res and she had a very similar upbringing to me. I would just say the difference is just like the bureaucratic stuff and money stuff, I think. And like if you live on res too, you're sort of subjected to whatever land that reservation is on. So like your hunting is very limited, right? And the whole reason why we were given reservations as Indigenous people in the first place was to limit our hunting and fishing choices. So we would be given like the pieces of land that weren't as plentiful as, the ones that the settlers took over and colonized. So that's a huge part of it for sure. But I think also just, different like bureaucratic things. And it's really hard to break this down.
But were you, did you grow up in was it like a majority white town, or were there a lot of other Anishinaabe there?
Yeah, it was about 50-50. Yeah, 50-50 white kids and Anishinaabe kids. But yeah, just I think the whole experience of growing up and then going to school, say for post-secondary, that's a whole thing where you have to apply to get funding to be able to do that. And you sort of fighting for that. And government is technically supposed to give you when they sign treaties with us, basically. So free education is part of that. But there's a lot of different pushbacks and hoops that you have to jump through just to access what was promised to you in that treaty setting. So, and it changes if you're living on res or off res. The hoops change and the check boxes are different, and it's just a whole nightmare. Honestly, it's just a headache. It's a headache for Indigenous kids to try to access the things that they were promised when we signed these deals with the government so many years ago. It frustrates me, and I just felt like I needed to write about it.
I forgive you, Jesus, for look what you did. I forgive you like Mary, for look what you did. Won't you look what you did? Won't you look what you did?
References to Jesus, God, the church come up in a few of your songs. You hear it in Pensacola.
Your hair is long, your burning medicines. God's love, keep pouring money.
Dead Horse.
But I wanna stand beneath the cross and just float away.
And Cellophane.
Save me, white Jesus, save me good. As good as I come.
Can you talk about your relationship to religion and the church growing up?
So when I grew up, my family went to a Pentecostal, evangelical church. When I was very young, I think I was 6 when they first started going. And I always say this, I think for my family at that time, it was the best thing they knew to do for our family at that time. I think the support of a church is actually pretty amazing. The community and the congregation and just the internal support of having families interwoven like that is because we also went to school in the church basement. So I kind of grew up in this one church building my whole life. So that part is actually really cool. But obviously there was a lot of religious indoctrination and
I forget in Canada, because I know here in the U.S., our boarding schools, some of them were church-led, some of them were government-led.
Yes.
Is that the same in Canada as well?
Yeah. I'd say most of them were church-led, I think. But yeah, so I went to school in the church, in the basement there, and yeah, the pastors were kind of my teachers as well. So it was all very, entwined, and fully grew up believing that, I'm going to hell if I don't do these things, and God is real, and, Jesus died for me and all that. And it did take many years to unlearn all that. And, especially reconnecting with my, Indigenous identity, it's sort of, those two things don't really, go hand in hand. So I think that's a lot of what I'm trying to unpack and bite down lyrically, just the tension between those two things. And the guilt of feeling like the religious guilt battering up against the guilt and or like the desire to want to learn about my culture and my language and stuff like that. So,
And you've said that you've kind of reconnected with your Indigenous roots in recent years. I'm curious, like how recent and like what was that inspiration to reconnect with that side of yourself?
it would have been when I was around 25, I started to do that reconnecting again. And I'm 33 now, so it's been a few years. Yeah. I just felt like there was something missing. And my grandfather died when I was 17. And he was like pretty much one of the only people that really grounded me in that way. He kept so many traditions alive in our family, whether it was, laying traps out on his trap line and I would go with him and help him, or, like fishing, picking berries, making bannock, all these things. He was like a master of the woods. Like he knew every type of plant out there. He could survive in the apocalypse, I'm sure. So for me, losing him sort of felt like losing that connection to that side of my identity. And then I think it was sort of a delayed grief because when I was 20, because he died as I was 17, then I went to university, and then I was 25, and I was like, wow, I really miss him, and something is really lacking in my life. And I added all of it up. I'm like, that's what it is. It's like the lack of those traditions that I, watched him do my whole life and did with him. So I think I had a moment where I was like, if I don't start doing this on my own, it won't be done.
And your song Cellophane, I understand, is about your grandfather.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
He speaks my language. He shakes the clay on every floor of every lake. Up on the trap line, he's on his way. Voice on the line, he's torn away. Ripping through the cellophane, kicking through the window pane.
And I understand too, he was like also an Indigenous Anishinaabe-led speaker.
Yeah, he was.
Was that common for you growing up? Because I know, like when I grew up in Michigan, I've done this reporting on this, and I literally called every single tribe in the state and said, "How many native speakers do you have left?" And no one could name more than 5.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like for you growing up, was like Anishinaabe-led spoken widely, or like within your family? Like how common was that for you to have Indigenous native speakers around you?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was kind of lucky because my Shomas spoke it, my grandpa. My mother spoke it fluently. There's a reason that she speaks it fluently. It's a crazy story. I can tell you.
Yeah, tell me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could try to be fast, but like basically do you know about the 60s Scoop?
So was this the when Indigenous kids would be like basically taken from their families and put it up for adoption?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So those workers showed up to my mom's house one day, and my mom she had 4 other siblings, younger siblings, and so it was all 5 of them there, the kids at the house, and her grandpa was there, like my great grandpa, and it was just all of them at the house. Her mom was gone somewhere. She was coming right back though. And the workers came up to the door, and like the social workers, and they were like, hey, like we're taking these kids basically like to be adopted, and like we're taking them. And they took them all, and my mom was taken as well. But then they were taking them all out to the car out in the front. And at the very last second, her grandfather ran up to one of the workers and snatched my mom back and ran back into the house.
So your mom
with
was
her.
the only one.
She was the only one that escaped. And basically all of her siblings got sent to Pennsylvania, which is a crazy, let's say, A, it's another country. B, it's a crazy distance because she grew up in Northern Ontario. This is where that happened. So she basically never saw them until they were adults because they were adopted out. And her mother never saw her children again because her mother, my grandmother, she died like when young, like when she was 40. So my mom got to grow up though in a house full of fluent speakers. So like my Gobish her grandfather, my grandfather, and her mother, they all spoke it. So my mom sort of kind of got lucky that way. Yeah. But it kind of goes to show, like, this is a reason why the language wasn't lasting, because these kids were being taken out of the homes.
And the residential schools and boarding schools where they weren't allowed to speak
the culmination of all these horrible things that happened. So, yeah. So I think I kind of I was lucky. I was surrounded in that way. And my mom is still a fluent speaker, which is, like, amazing. Like, every time I hear it, I just get chills. I can't really speak it. I'm trying to learn it, though. I'm trying to get her to, like, write stuff down for me. And yeah, I think she understands it's important.
Just like that, he speaks my language. He shakes the clay on every floor of every lake. Up on the trap line, he's on his way. Voice on the line, he's torn away. Ripping through the cellophane, kicking through the window panes, just to get to you again. Ripping through the cellophane, kicking through the window panes.
I mean, do you also feel like, the fact that you've reconnected with your culture later in life, but also like having this band Ribbon Skirt, and being called Ribbon Skirt, and some of these lyrics like very, very specific to indigeneity. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like also music has helped you connect with your Indigenous self in a new way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, music has always been, like, my first love. Like, I've always been in music projects or bands, or always been singing since I was a little kid. And it's kind of the thing I need, and I think having something that you need like that, and being able to utilize it in a way that helps you process this very huge thing is very, like, it's kind of crazy. Like, yeah, I could go to therapy, which I probably should, but like, this is also very therapeutic, I think, in a lot of ways, and helps. It's really helped me process some stuff that I thought I would never be able to get through. So yeah, it's been amazing. Like, yeah, really life-saving, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of, your album and this recent EP, there's some harder themes in there, lyrically, but I'm curious, like, what songs on here, like, give you the most hope or have, like, that message of hope?
I really like Earth Eater because at the end of the song, there's a line that goes, "Bite down, Earth Eater." And to me, that just really speaks to all of these experiences that I've mentioned or like written about on the record or sung about. And there's been so many bad things, so many good things, and that is just life. And that is just, you have to take the good with the bad. And at the end of it all, like, the earth, we don't own the earth owns us. Like, we belong to the earth. And I think that it's just the idea of, like, biting into all of your experiences with vigor and enthusiasm, no matter, like, even though there's going to be some painful bits in there, you have to go 100% in, or else it's not worth it, So I think, to me, that I think that's a really hopeful song and a really hopeful way to end the record too. I always feel lighter after I sing that song.
So my final question, and this is a fun kicker question, is KEXP, we're all about music discovery, and so we would love for you to recommend a song for us, like a song that is not yours, just something that you love somewhere along your life, or maybe something that you're really loving right now.
I weirdly do have a song that I could mention right off the bat. It's by my friend's band. The band is called Tinge. The song is called Native Tongue. And also an Anishinaabe, great Anishinaabe band from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Great lyricist, great guitar player, just wonderful song structures in general, but like just amazing, powerful voice. And they do talk a lot about the topics that I was breaking down in Bite Down as well. So yeah, I think I want to plug that song. It's really good.
Well, Tashiina, thank you so much for talking about your life, about your band Ribbon Skirt, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Next time on A Deeper Listen, we'll hear about the new album from Say She She and get a history lesson on the 1979 Disco Demolition Night in Chicago.
Let's take what happened at Comiskey Park, where people were really just finding an excuse to burn black records, black musicians' records. Got nothing to do with disco and nothing to do with genre.
That's next time on the podcast. And hey, before you go, please share some love in the form of a rating or review of this show. It would mean the world to me. Do it in whatever podcast app you're listening to right now. It just takes a few moments. Right now. I'm serious. Do it. It would mean the world. It really, really would. But most of all, thanks for taking a deeper listen.